Good evening, Commissioner.
Yeah.
And welcome, everyone, to episode 330 of everyone's favorite wrestling podcast, DF and Marks.
I'm Jay. He is.
And I am the brainless one. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know it says yeah, but I'm still the brainless one.
Speaking of
Yeah,
last week, surprising, shocking, LA Knight not on the Smackdown. What do you think about that one, brainless one?
it was a very, very sad day in America. I was
So LA Knight basically sounds like he came down with coronavirus, and now his status for tonight, it sounds like he will be there and he will be live on SmackDown. Glad that it wasn't anything too serious as far as that, because COVID can be good, like as far as like uh, not having major symptoms or
yeah, and it's unfortunate that he had to miss the show and everything, considering the fact that he has been getting quite the push as of late. And it's like you said, it was COVID, and it could have been a lot worse because of the fact that it was COVID. But luckily he is getting kind of broadcasted for tonight's episode of SmackDown, because apparently he was supposed to be. Spoiler alert, he was supposed to be the guy who was going to be Cena's.
All right. Are we back?
I think we're back.
I think we're back. All right. Sweet, sweet, sweet. Yeah, it cut out on me for a hot second. So, can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. What's going on, Mike Rainey? What's going on, Tim?
And honestly, Jay, like you were saying with the whole thing with LA Knight, it was unfortunate because he was just getting pushed and utilized the way he was. And again, like you also said, it was COVID. It could have been a lot worse, but the fact that they are kind of promoting him for tonight's SmackDown, and they only do that if you're a somebody. And if
Right.
he is ready to go, if he's being promoted, he's gonna be there tonight, and this is really good for him.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's possible that they could have something where they shoot it off-site, or maybe he shot it with his cell phone and sent it in. It's something. It could be something like that, but I'm hopeful that it's something more substantial, and we get to see him in the ring, and hopefully he'll be able to have a match next week at Fastlane.
The rumor is that when AJ Styles was taken out, he was going to get written off for Fastlane, and LA Knight is supposed to be the guy that steps up and takes AJ Styles' spot in that match, so that John Cena is not wrestling a 2-on-1 handicap match
Sure.
at Fastlane. And it's funny too, because I'm still trying to figure out who the tag team was that is facing Jimmy Uso and Solo, because they posted it was them versus John Cena, but I didn't see anybody.
Yeah. And apparently, as far as John Cena goes, we're not going to be able to see him as Peacemaker anymore. Oh, wait. We are, but we can't. Actually, James Gunn, the guy who is now the head of DCU, the DC Universe, says that John Cena is going to be one of the holdovers from the previous iteration of the DC Universe. So good on John Cena for having that continuing part. They're going to do a Peacemaker season 2 in several years, but it sounds like Cena, outside of that, will be involved in more DC projects. So good on him.
Yeah. And it's good because I thought he did a great job as Peacemaker. I thought that was one of his better roles. It's better than most, if not almost all, of Dwayne's roles that he has done. The greatest character that Dwayne Johnson has ever played is The Rock, and you can't tell me otherwise. And everything else has just kind of been drizzle shits. But, kudos
I
to the.
love the movie The Rundown.
Okay, not all of his movies were drizzle shits. The Rundown and
I enjoyed Rampage for what it was.
there was
I
another.
enjoyed Fast Five for what it was.
Yeah, I fell out of it with the Fast Five when they were all the way up to Fast and the Furious 3, and then they did like the other 47 versions with the Tokyo Drift, and now they're on
Dang it.
they're on they're now on Fast and the Furious 137. So I and it's interesting, speaking of The Rock, there was another interesting thing that happened in regards to professional wrestling, kind of, sort of, as we found out that they will now do a merger. Of course, the fan blows the page. A merger between the XFL and the USFL.
It has been a long time where somebody has tried to come up with some sort of other football league that will not compete with the NFL because they quite literally can't.
Literally.
With the NFL. So there's always tried to have this, whether it's a spring league, like the USFL was a thing a long, long time ago. Clearly, the XFL has had a couple of iterations. There was a thing called the UFL several years back, and then I think there was like AAU, all sorts of attempts. I thought that the one that Vince brought back a few years ago really had a shot and could have been interesting, in the coronavirus just put that all down. And last year, after the initial season of the XFL, it was said the Rock and the investors lost about $60 million, but Rock's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. So, and it wasn't just him taking the loss, but he really wanted to have a place where people of like a similar talent level as what he had coming out of the University of Miami had more opportunity to possibly have, that fairy tale ending of getting to the NFL, and this would just be an extra thing there. But the USFL decided that they were going to start doing their thing, and it was like two competing B leagues. And I don't know if either of them created like this ginormous fan base, but to me, it felt like XFL had a bit more steam behind it versus the USFL. But them combining, I think that it's a win-win for both of them.
Yeah.
And beyond that, I'm going to put, if I had a tinfoil hat, I would put it on right now. And within the next 5 years, I'm going to say that we are going to see the XFL under the umbrella of Endeavor.
Wow. Okay.
Just putting it out there.
See, my whole thing was that the XFL really wanted to kind of stand above every other, football league, not saying that they're going to be the NFL. They should have went out and got the guys. They should have went out and got the Tebow. They should have went out and got Johnny Manziel. They should have went out and got Colin Kaepernick. And if Colin Kaepernick is so hell-bent on playing in the NFL, for crying out loud, he's begging the Jets for a job.
Right.
And the fact that he's doing that almost got my brainless, for the record. It almost got my brainless. Because anybody who would ask the Jets for a job has no idea what they're talking about.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers had to go to a dark place to get there.
Yes, and he was on psychedelic drugs too. But that's what they need to do. They need to get the marquee players. I'm not saying they're going to go into the NFL and steal Justin Jefferson or, Patrick Mahomes. I'm saying you get the guys who have already kind of like fallen out of it, the guys who have been like the darlings of the training camps, the guys who get cut on the last day, the guys who were cut for whatever reason, like years ago, like when Brady Quinn was cut, or somebody to that extent. You need to kind of get that star name appeal the best way you can. You're not going to do that when you have guys like Ben DiNucci and, Spurgeon Wynn as your starting quarterbacks. You need to.
Maybe they could convince Tom Brady to come out of retirement.
Talk about 180s, by the way. I have done a complete 180 on Tom Brady. I have enjoyed. He's been in a bunch of commercials. He did the one for the Manning cast. Yep. I belly laughed. I laughed so hard. I'm like, okay, Brady, you've won me over after you were drunk on the boat after the Bucks parade or during the Bucks parade. Now you're clowning on people because you're like, I'm retiring. Oh, I'm not going to retire. It's great. I love it. I don't despise that man anymore. And I'm glad that I don't despise Tom Brady because he is an absolute treasure, but he's still not the GOAT.
All right. All right. So Mike Rainey saying with the actors strike apparently coming to the writers strike, I believe, has come to a close, but the actors strike is still going on right now. Generally, though, with these things, like when one strike kind of ends, the next one generally ends pretty soon after. But the thing is all these actors need scripts that they could actually read and what have you. So it'll take the writers a little bit of time to come up with stuff. This isn't like Vince McMahon having them rewrite Smackdown 3 minutes before air. It's not quite like that. And as far as Cena goes, again, it's going to take a little bit for them to come up with scripts for movies and television shows. Cena will be fine through October for whatever storyline they have for him. Heck, he could probably go longer if he feels like it. And, when we're talking about The Rock, when we're talking about Cena and being actors in Hollywood, The Rock did say some interesting things in recent interviews where he actually said, look, I'm largely in charge of whether or not I'm working or not. And the reason why I haven't wrestled isn't because of not having my schedule clear, but I want when I come back for it to be magical and something that transcends what's already been done. And that's why he's been waiting and holding off. But, he ain't no spring chicken, so I think it has to happen soon, and I think he knows that. So whatever the best idea they could come up with for him, they should do it.
They dropped the ball then. They should have done it in Hollywood against Roman this past year. I'm sorry. Doing it at 40, all you're doing, if this is the route you want to go, because you want Cody Rhodes to still finish this story against Roman Reigns, because you kind of have him now vested in it. And I don't know what he's doing at Fastlane. I'm not sure if Cody has a match at Fastlane, but he could very well be John Cena's tag team partner, and they just swerved us with the whole LA Knight thing. I really hope it's LA Knight because I think it'd be better for him because he kind of needs something like that. And I'm still hell-bent on him being the wrestler of the year for me this year. But with The Rock doing the thing with Roman at 40 in Philadelphia, and then you're like, oh, yeah, we're just going to have him keep the title again for another year. It's going to start becoming more stale and more stagnant, and you're going to start losing interest in that championship. It's already to that point now because we see more of Seth Rollins every single week. And when was the last time we saw Roman Reigns? So I just whatever.
And Roman Reigns' next title defense is actually against somebody who's already defended the title against a couple times, and it's not going to be on TV. It's going to be against Sami Zayn, and apparently Roman is going to be there for a good amount during October. I'm guessing setting up his match for the Saudi show that they have coming up.
If they're going to have Roman on the Saudi show, they should let Seth Rollins stay back. Because whenever they do the Saudi show, it's going to either screw up the whole thing with SmackDown or it's going to screw up the whole thing with Raw. So if anything, I would let one of those two champions stay behind and then use them for whatever show they're going to be on and then have the other one show up and defend their title in some kind of capacity. There's no need to have both of them. If anything, Seth really should be the one that gets the time off because Roman just doesn't wrestle.
And one thing that they have been doing right for, I'd say, since Triple H took over, it might have even been a little bit during when Vince was still there before the allegations pushed him out. They had started taping Smackdown before they went to Saudi Arabia, which was a good idea. And it's probably, like, if they taped Raw, it wouldn't be the worst idea either. But I don't think they'll do both. But I agree with you. I mean, Seth with a banged up body doesn't need to put extra miles on a plane or extra bumps on at this point. Clearly, I'm not going to say he's getting near the end of his bump card, but he's worse for the wear because of it.
The only thing I could think of that's just been kind of festering on the back of my mind is I just keep getting this weird feeling that they're going to finally pull the trigger with Shinsuke Nakamura and he's going to take the title from Seth at Fastlane. It's going to be a last man standing match, if I'm not mistaken, between the two of them?
It is.
I'm really this rivalry has been very, very interesting to me. I've been fully vested in it. I love what they've been doing with Shinsuke Nakamura as of late. This is the Nakamura that we all fell in love with when he was in NXT no more than 6-7 years ago. This is the Nakamura that we expected when he first got called up to the main roster. If they did a title change, yes, I could see Nakamura going because, hey, you're the new champion. But like you said, he's got the problem with his back. There's no need to have him go. I know that he's been proclaiming himself as the champion who's going to defend the title anytime, anywhere, all this stuff.
If that's the case, I want to see him defend the title against Jinder Mahal on the golf course.
He should have defended the title against Jinder Mahal in the Punjabi prison in India.
Yes.
But, we don't get what we want. Maybe...
I mean, hey, to be fair, I did get what I wanted. I got the Jinder versus Randy Orton in the Punjabi prison a handful of years ago. I'll take that victory.
Almost as good as my victory when I got what I wanted. A double ACL tear from Nia Jax. Her fans are getting somebody actually attacked me and they're like, Nia Jax is good. That's why she's back. And I'm like, why are you lying? This is why I love Instagram, because these are the conversations I have with people on Instagram.
Another conversation out there about fans. WWE announced this week that one Jade Cargill has signed a multi-year deal with the company. What are your thoughts, Brainless One?
Jay, I've been waiting for this for the last few days. They leaked out that information to ESPN. That's a big deal. I actually had to go to the WWE page, to the headlines, to see what the headlines were. Yeah. The only other thing that was mentioned about AEW in those headlines for wrestling, and it was under the WWE thing, was that CM Punk got fired.
Yeah.
They talked about Terry Funk. They talked about Bray Wyatt. They talked about the merger with Endeavor, joining forces with UFC. And then there was Jade Cargill's headline. Big picture of her on the front. Great story that they had about her. WWE had people waiting for her in the parking lot, recording her as she was coming into the performance center. They took pictures of Jade Cargill as she was getting ready in the ring. I've said this before. I'll say it again. And it is the one thing that I've been the most at the forefront when it comes to my arguments in regards to WWE. They are going to present this woman the way Tony Khan and AEW could not. And that is why she is there. They have already made her a bigger deal in her 1 week of being signed to a contract without even wrestling one match than she ever was with that 500 some odd day reign in AEW as the TBS champion, her undefeated streak, only having 2 losses Chris Statlander, by the way. Called it. But they are promoting her and presenting her in a way that she is going to be a huge star for them. They invested a lot of money in Jade Cargill because they believe in her. If they let her go to the Performance Center, let her, because she's not terrible. She's not that great. She's still kind of green in the ring, but that's what the Performance Center is for, to make you better. That's why Brian Pillman's down there. Brian Pillman's going to be a much better star than he was in AEW, and Brian Pillman could wrestle.
Right.
Jade Cargill's in the right place at the right time, and she knew it. And I think this is a slam dunk on all aspects of this.
Jade said in an interview that WWE was always the end goal for her. She was like, we all know what the number one company in the world is, and that's where my sights were set. She's been doing wrestling for 2 years, and like you said, she is not the worst in the ring. She could hold her own. If she is in there with the right person, she could do all right. I think starting her at the Performance Center, I don't know if they're going to start her in NXT. I think they made this splash as far as making the announcement. I would think you would want her on big TV soon. The only thing I could see possibly for them holding off on this, if they want to wait as far as having her main roster, would possibly be, okay, well, we signed our new TV rights deal. Let's make her have her debut, and that would be about a year from now. That way she would get a year under the WWE system, understanding like what they want as far as where you look for the hard cameras, getting a year of training in, with how they do their thing under whether it's Shawn Michaels, Natty Neidhart, Bret Hart's Paperboy, whoever it may be.
Not the Red Rooster.
You never know.
Or Hugh Morris.
Is that supposed to be funny?
What? Is that supposed to be humorous? What? The first official loss, the first person to actually lose to Goldberg in his 173 match winning streak. Hugh Morris.
Right. So Chris Brown saying he expects Jade to be going against Charlotte at WrestleMania this year. If they're going to put her forth, like they enjoy making Natalya the sacrificial lamb for just about everybody coming in because Natalya can hold a match together no matter who it's with.
Yep.
Quite honestly, if she has a match against Natty, I don't know if it would have to be something. What was it when she went against Rhea and Rhea destroyed her within a couple minutes? I think maybe something like that would be in the cards for Jade, but you may have to build her up a little bit with some of the people on the lower end of the totem pole in the division.
If they wanted to wait until WrestleMania, kind of like what they did with Fandango, where his first official match on the main roster was at WrestleMania 29 when he beat the GOAT of GOATs, who has goated more than GOATs and have ever goated in the history of GOATdom. I could see them doing that. And she has a plethora of options. She's already listed off that she said that Charlotte Flair, Rhea Ripley, and Bianca Belair are all dream opponents for her.
Yeah.
She said that her and Bianca would be good enough to main event WrestleMania, and I don't
think she's wrong.
I don't disagree. So I think that, and if she keeps doing this whole thing back and forth online with like Bayley, like she's been doing, Bayley's a hell of a person to have as your first career match at WrestleMania. Becky Lynch is as well. Charlotte Flair. Unfortunately for Charlotte Flair in this situation, the way WWE has presented her, she's way the fuck up here. Jade's kind of still down here. She has a ways to go. She'll get to Charlotte.
Charlotte has to be the end boss, just like for Gunther. Brock is the end boss.
And then Gunther becomes the end boss.
Yes.
I think you have an overabundance of women that would make Jade look good, that you could put her in the ring at WrestleMania, and it would be a WrestleMania worthy match. And if you want to keep her down in NXT and have her learn down there, because that's the best place to do it.
Yeah.
She went from the minor leagues to WWE's minor leagues, which is basically the major leagues. If there was anywhere I'd want to learn to be a wrestler, it's there at the Performance Center. Because that is.
I mean, we found that footage earlier in the week of the AEW Performance Center. Yeah, so we had footage we found of it looked like somebody's birthday party, and they dressed up as professional wrestlers, and instead of a blow-up house, they had a blow-up ring, and they were having wrestling matches. I mean, it looked like a Young Bucks match.
I thought it was my birthday party, to be fair.
To be fair. And speaking of AEW, and speaking of people and this signing, Kenny Omega was actually pretty upset at the response to Jade Cargill's signings, and he was specifically upset with wrestling fans. And I know it's something you wanted to get into, Brainless One. What are your thoughts on Twinkle Toes?
If I may. Cousin Jay, I am not speaking this as the Brainless One, co-host of everyone's favorite wrestling podcast, The F and Marks. I am speaking to you and everyone else as Cousin Bobby, Rob frickin' Guy, Robert Francis, whatever connotation, any different option of calling me this is not the gimmick. This is the real deal. How dare you, Kenny Omega? You're going to come out there and you're going to talk about fans because they're not celebrating, that they're not happy that Ricky Starks and other AEW stars are congratulating Jade on getting this contract with WWE? Really, Kenny? Really? You know, I think it's funny because it is your fans, Kenny, that have kind of started this whole thing, where there is now this rift between fans of WWE and fans of AEW. You really are behind this. Because if we had just done what I said 4 years ago and treated AEW as an alternative instead of a competitor, all would be fine. I would still be watching wrestling on Wednesdays and Saturdays. We would still have CM Punk in AEW. But no, Kenny, your fans are the most toxic part of professional wrestling, and you're going to come after other fans? You're the same asshole who came out and said, all right, what happened in the past should stay in the past, and let's just move on with everything. And then later that night, you bit your opponent in Chicago after one of the freaking yucks decided that they were going to do the botched buckshot lariat. Oh, and then to make this worse, to add the fuel to the fire that was already burning inside of this guy, yesterday, the faux Vince McMahon account that one of my favorite followers on Twitter, by the way, was posting something about, it was the match on Wednesday that they had, and it was one member of the Ass Boys versus Orange Cassidy versus Pentagon versus one of the stupid asshole Young Bucks. And there was a point in the match where every wrestler delivered a Canadian Destroyer or some kind of flippy, dippy pile driver type move to every opponent in the match. And I said, AEW and Kenny Omega have ruined the Canadian Destroyer for me. It is now my least favorite move in professional wrestling. And some ass clown who is a fan of the Elite, I know this because I already know because I've been fighting these people for years, Jay. Told me that Kenny Omega has never delivered a Canadian Destroyer. I said no, But when he wrestled the blow-up doll, it had hit him with 7, not 1, not 2, 7 consecutive Canadian destroyers. Went to get pinned and kicked out after 2. Now, granted, I understand that Kenny Omega, on the grand scheme of things, on the Celometer, he is not Samoa Joe selling Samoans. He is Kenny Omega selling a move in wrestling. This is the new Celometer.
Okay.
And then he said, I'm wrong. He basically told me that I was wrong and I didn't know what I was talking about. That was Ibushi who did that, and he is also a very good in-ring wrestler. So what did the Brainless one do, Cousin Jay?
He sent the person the video. I
Googled it because I no longer have that video on my phone because I don't want to see it every time I open up my Internet Explorer. I deleted it months ago. I had to because it was there longer than it should have. Delete. So I went and I Googled it, and I found it because I was just trying to find the GIF, because I know there's the GIF of the 7 Canadian destroyers in a row. Instead, somebody else on Twitter had the whole, like, the bits. It was 12 years ago, Kenny Omega wrestled the blow-up doll, and it showed the clips of everything, even Kenny eating multiple Canadian destroyers. And I sent it to this dude, and I said, you were saying. And he had the audacity to start backpedaling against me because he was wrong, and I had told him he was wrong.
Wrong.
And then tried to play it off. And then I told him, basically, the short of it was, next time someone puts you in your place, just shut your mouth, don't talk to them, and take your L. Have a nice day, with the Mick Foley thumbs up, and then I blocked them.
Yeah.
To only wake up this morning to somebody else trying to argue with me the exact same thing. Oh, look at that. The Brainless one rants. I am tired of this, Jay. He and his buddies, Nikki and Maddie, and the guy that lives about 4 hours from here are the reason why the fans are the way they are in all of this. If their fans just let people have the opinion that they want against their heroes, the Elite, this wouldn't be nearly as deep and as dark and as for blood as it has become. I just can't fathom. I'm a fan of CM Punk. Do I like the fact that he's a crybaby who has walked out of every company he has ever worked in? No, I'm not a fan of that. Am I a fan of some of the other things? Am I a fan of the fact that Hulk Hogan is now the biggest liar?
And a newlywed.
To Sky Daily.
Which sounds like either an American Gladiators or a professional wrestling name. You choose. Brother.
Or a porn star.
Well, brother, when I was doing American Gladiators with Muhammad Ali. Oh, Hulk, it was Layla. It was Muhammad Ali, brother. And we were doing American Gladiators, and that's where I met Sky, brother.
I was supposed to get the Foreman grill, but then I knocked him out in a boxing match, brother. And they decided to give it to Foreman because they felt bad for him. I just don't get it. I can't with them anymore. I just can't. This is why I can't watch wrestling on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Not like anybody actually watches Rampage. Am I right or am I right or am I right? Right?
Am I right?
Right.
Right.
I've tried. I've tried my damnedest. I just can't do it. It's like dealing with a Yankee fan.
Cowboys fan.
No, Yankee fans are worse. I'm sorry.
I know. Tim's out there.
Oh, yeah. Well, Timmy's a Hail to the Redskins fan, too, so.
Chris Brown saying, or a Hooters girl. Sky Daly could be a Hooters girl. Yeah.
It could be Carson Daly's sister, too.
Tim said, and I quote, fuck the Red Sox.
Yes, fuck the Red Sox. They suck.
Fuck the Cowboys all day. All right.
Yeah, yes. Yep. Just like the Cardinals did on Sunday.
Yep. All right. So a couple other things in here. Chris Brown talking about Canadian Destroyer and Super Kicks have been poisoned between Kenny and the old cucks.
Thank you, Chris Brown.
And yeah. And Mike Rainey was asking whether or not the Adam Cole baby injury is legit. It certainly seems like it. It looked like he was really having a hard time going to the ring after he jumped during AEW Grand Slam. I don't think he's that good of an actor. And I know they posted photos, and photos could be doctored up, just like the Ric Flair and Randy Macho Man Savage feud leading into WrestleMania 8. Photos could be doctored. I don't think so here. I think Adam Cole, if I'm being honest, this may not be the worst thing for him with all he's been through in the past couple of years. Even more time off to heal his brain, I don't think is a terrible idea. It sucks that he's going to be out for a little while with this ankle injury. I love the fact that MJF is going to defend the titles in a handicap match. He did not let Adam Cole, baby, relinquish the Ring of Honor titles.
I don't watch the product anymore. I saw the pictures. Is it just me, or did that thing that was wrapped around his bad leg look egregiously too big to be what it's supposed to be? Like, it could just be like a faux one. And honestly, I wouldn't put it past him, especially because, yes, I am aware of what's going on, even if I don't watch it, everyone. I know that they're doing this thing where the Devil attacked Jay White on Wednesday, where it was 4 guys and the Devil, and people are like, it can't be, people are saying it's probably not MJF, and everybody's convinced it's Adam Cole.
Baby.
And honestly, I think the fact that it looks so likely, because they already planted the Easter egg when the mask was in Adam Cole's locker after they won the Ring of Honor tag team titles. It would make a lot of sense for them to, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, because it is AEW, I fully expect it to be Adam Cole. But if this was actually WWE, people would be expecting it to be Adam Cole, and it would end up being somebody else. And the fact that people are hoping that it's Adam Cole just because the possibility of Bobby Fish returning.
Yes.
Who is now...
Sign me up. Bobby Fish has been wrestling for almost 6,000 years. You need that kind of experience to really put everybody in that locker room in line. When the Young Bucks talk about, like, hey, they're the EVPs, it's like Bobby Fish could say, I invented wrestling.
I was the first pilot on the Wright brothers plane.
Tim saying maybe it's Hornswoggle.
But honestly, I couldn't even think of like who else it would be. Not that I would really care.
Now, if this is a legit injury, can we do this similar to what they did with Rikishi and Stone Cold, where like that was the original intent to have Adam Cole do it, but then you know because of the injury, like we find out it was somebody else, and then later on down the road, I did it for Adam Cole, baby.
I think Rikishi would rather be a part of this Bloodline storyline, and quite frankly, if anybody could inject a little life into the Bloodline storyline, it is actually Rikishi. He's a WWE Hall of Famer.
All right, so we got Jimmy Bain on YouTube asking what happened with LA Knight.
Yeah.
So Jimmy, LA Knight contracted COVID last week. He was supposed to be on the show. They were supposed to be setting up for him and Cena at Fastlane to be going against Bloodline, but because he came down with COVID, and you know, you just never know when you're gonna test negative. It's like, I know for me, when I had it, I felt pretty good after a couple of days, but it took like another week and a half before I actually tested negative. They're promoting LA Knight to be on tonight's SmackDown. This isn't necessarily that he will be at the arena. It's possible he's recorded something at home with his, cell phone.
Yeah.
All that being said, I think it's really positive that LA Knight is actually going to be on SmackDown, because if they felt like, one, like it was a tough version of COVID that he was dealing with, where he was sick and had a loss of energy, they wouldn't do this.
Right.
And if they're trying to set up future storylines, that just means that he's on the mend. Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, if he was there last week and he didn't have the COVID and he was the one that came out and saved Cena, that pop would have exploded. And I think they're in Sacramento tonight. That's my favorite. I don't care. I love that Hartford crowd. The Hartford crowd always comes and they brings it. Chicago has a great crowd. Cleveland has a great crowd. As much as I hate Philadelphia.
Providence has a great crowd.
Providence has a great crowd. And as much as I hate all Philadelphia sports, the Philadelphia crowd is fantastic. Chicago, yep. Sacramento is my favorite. I absolutely love Sacramento's crowd, because when they're like ruckus, you can see the camera shake, and it's not because of the fact that Bucky Beaver saw a picture of a new dam or something. No, that's the crowd reacting. That's the 2001 NFC Championship game between the Giants and the Vikings, and I felt that building shake. Yeah. That's the kind of reaction you get from Sacramento. If it happens again where John Cena comes out and he gets attacked by Jimmy and Solo and LA Knight's music pops and plays, that the roof's going to come off. Absolutely. It's going to be like when you were there when Daniel Bryan turned on the Wyatt family. That's how crazy it's going to be.
That place was rocking. The Providence Civic Center was rocking. I don't know if it'll be as loud as when Kevin Owens and Elias were berating Seattle. I don't know if it'll be that loud, but I think it'll be as loud as it'll be louder than when I was at Raw a couple weeks ago and Dominic Mysterio was not allowed to talk by the crowd, because every time he opened his mouth, we just got louder.
Yeah,
it was great. And Jimmy Bain is saying they are in Sacramento tonight. So
yeah.
All right, so a couple other things out there. Possibility, and it was something we discussed pre-show, that maybe Adam Edge may be on Wrestle Dream. Maybe he is behind these attacks going on with Jay White at AEW. There have been conflicting reports, specifically with Edge, whether or not his deal is finished at the end of September or in early October, or maybe, October 1 is the day where he's a free agent. Do you believe we see Adam Edge show up in AEW soon? And Tim has a request that his name either be Ledge or Sledge.
No, we're not going to see Adam Edge in AEW. I'm now convinced that AEW took him off the internal roster, or whoever it was that announced
WWE.
Yes. The fact that they took him off the internal roster, or the fact that somebody let it out that he was taken off the internal roster, has me thinking that they're just trolling on the fans because they want them to think that he's going there.
I want to see him against the Dastardly Christian.
I want to see him sign the contract 5 minutes before. I want them to announce that he signed the contract with WWE 5 minutes before the Dream pay-per-view happens.
I wouldn't put it beyond WWE to do something like that.
Or like tomorrow at 11:57, he's going to sign the contract. A father with 2 young daughters is going to sign his contract at 11:57 at night.
Right.
Am I
right? Right.
I'm sorry, Jay. There's certain people who are just WWE lifers, and Adam Edge is one of them. Randy Orton's one. John Cena, I'm not going to count what happens in Hollywood because, Hollywood's a whole different entity. When it comes to professional wrestling, John Cena's a lifer. Seeing Edge in AEW would be the equivalent of seeing. It would be like if Randy Orton went to AEW, or if either one of them went to WCW. I mean, I know Edge had a cup of coffee in WCW, but like Randy Orton, I don't know. I think that their appreciation for Edge is gonna just be overwhelming, and quite frankly, and I love Edge. Believe me when I tell you, I've said for years when he retired, they're going to miss him, but the fans are going to miss him more because they don't have anybody to replace Edge. He's irreplaceable.
Sure. Yeah.
But Edge at 50, what the hell are you expecting from him?
Yeah.
If you're AEW and you're an AEW fan?
Quite honestly, I would expect Edge to be, I'm not going to say similar to what Sting has done. I think he would do singles matches, and he would be there specifically to go against opponents he has not faced that he really wants to before he wants out. Jericho went out there, and I'm sure he's called Edge, but more or less said, what is there left for you to do in WWE? You would have new opponents, and you would have a clean slate to do whatever you want in AEW. Is that appealing to Edge at this point? Because he doesn't have to build credibility. The AEW audience knows who he is. They could do something with him and Christian. Christian is the TNT champion right now.
If the only way that I would be on board with Edge leaving WWE to do whatever the hell Edge is going to do is if they actually give me what I want for Edge's last match. And that would be Edge and Christian versus Matt and Jeff versus Bubba Ray and Devon one more time. That would be the easiest sell for me for a $50 pay-per-view. I don't care that Bubba Ray Devon doesn't move like he used to. Neither does Matt Hardy.
Right. Or Jeff Hardy for that reason.
Or Jeff Hardy. Christian and Edge are just two freaks. So is Bubba Ray.
Yeah.
But yes, 100% would I love to see one of my favorite wrestling matches of all time once again. I don't care. It wouldn't be worse than watching Ric Flair get in the ring one more time. I think it would be absolutely entertaining.
Yeah.
But that would be the only way I would want to see Edge not wrestle his last match in WWE of his career. I'd want to see...
Oh, Mike Rainey's pouring gasoline on the fire right now. Would you put the Young Cucks in that match too, Brainless One?
No, not a fucking chance. Why? They don't need that match. No. And that's the reason why I don't want him to go to AEW, because I don't want him to team up with Christian Cage and they fight the Bucks. Matt and Nick don't deserve that. They don't deserve shit. And the fact that whatever one of them, I don't remember, don't care, is going after fans because, calling them toxic because they said that the Young Bucks are a cancer. They are! They are a cancer to professional wrestling. I am sorry. What they do, if you want to do what you want to do, you three fuckheads, go sign up for Cirque du Soleil. I'm sure people would much rather watch you do that bullshit there than in a wrestling ring. You are not wrestlers. That is not art. That is crap. You can't tell me a dude wrestling an inanimate object that people use to get off on and deliver moves to himself to completely just expose the wrestling industry. It was no different than that match, dude, showing the behind-the-scenes shit of WWE and professional wrestling. This is no different. How the hell did you... You basically showed how somebody delivers a Canadian destroyer because you used it with a blow-up doll. And we're supposed to be okay with this. Wrestling fans back in the day used to attack wrestlers because they thought it was real. It's kind of hard to even defend professional wrestling anymore because of people like Nick Jackson, Matt Jackson, and Kenny Omega. I cringe and I die every single time I see those assholes on my TV or on my phone. I can't. And I tried to give Kenny the benefit of the doubt because at least he went out there and defended, the fact that, some of the wrestlers were congratulating Jade Cargill. I applaud him for that. I hate him a lot less than I did. Oh, and then to add on to it, Kevin Nash in an interview said that Kenny Omega reminded him of somebody of his past that he worked with. Cousin Jay, would you like to share who it was that he got compared to?
I don't even know.
How
Bring
about
it on me?
Somebody who worked with Kevin Nash, who Kevin Nash was very close to, that would make the Brainless one lose his mind.
Oh. X-Pac.
X-Pac. I have the quote and everything. I have to send. I'm going to probably post it on the Facebook page. I read that. I died. I laughed so hard. Puke. I had to clean my glasses and read it again to make sure that's exactly what I read. He compared Twinkle Toes to a man who I've done a complete 180 on, but now that the fact that Kevin Nash has compared Kenny to X-Pac, X-Pac is now getting Brainless heat.
Yeah. Jimmy. Jimmy in the chat is saying the Young Bucks are fucking ridiculous. I liked them when they were in Impact Wrestling. When they were Generation Me, and I was like, okay, this is a different thing. They went against the Hardy Boys, and I was like, I enjoyed that. They had like TLC matches. But, they've just gone too far. When they had the exploding wrestling boot, I was like, as much as I know it's presentation, spectacle, and having a little fun, I mean, just a little bit way too much. But, yeah. Jessica, hello. Thank you for tuning in. I know it's been a few weeks. Thank you for
what's up, Jessica?
Always supporting. We love you.
Yeah?
So, yeah. Jimmy saying, I punched a wrestler one time when I was in the front row. I believe it was Triple H. Dude, did he turn around and do anything to you? Because I know that there's been a couple times people have gotten into the ring and it hasn't gone well for them with Triple H. Heck, there was even a time WWE was in England, and there were a bunch of really, really cocky kickboxers who were making fun of the wrestlers, saying like, oh, what you do is fake and blah, 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 blah. Then a scuffle breaks out, and guess what? The professional wrestlers kicked the shit out of the kickboxers.
Just out of curiosity.
I believe that there were more kickboxers than there were wrestlers.
Now, my question to you is, was any of the wrestlers that they attacked in England Steve Blackman?
I'm trying to remember who was with Triple H in that. I think The Undertaker was one of them.
Oh. that's all I needed. That's all I needed. You just The Undertaker. No. I'm sorry. That's it. Brock Lesnar, The Undertaker, Steve Blackman, Ken Shamrock.
I would have to find who it was, but I think it was like not a lot of people that were like combat sports people. It was like wrestlers.
Yeah, The Undertaker. I wouldn't mess with The Undertaker.
Right.
I wouldn't mess with Kane either.
Kane!
Bobby Lashley.
Right.
CM Punk has wrestled in UFC. He's another guy I wouldn't fuck with.
Right.
Yeah,
thanks, Luke Perry.
The Big Show.
So another interesting tag team that was thrown into the mix a little earlier in the chat, like, you were talking about having, one last TLC match. What if they made it a 4-way and they involved FTR into that?
No, I'm sorry. the only acceptable team for that, because I don't need, because obviously if Edge does go to AEW and he teams up with Christian, it's a guarantee it's going to be Edge and Christian versus FTR. No questions. I know how close the Edge is to FTR. FTR does not need to be in this match. If you wanted to somehow, some way finagle the Road Dogg from WWE for like a night and let him team up with Billy Gunn, so we had the New Age Outlaws, I would say I'd be okay with that.
Yep.
Unless you got like Chuck Palumbo and then we got Billy and Chuck back, but I don't really need to see that. Really don't need to see that. It's one of the few things from my hiatus that I took a few years back that I'm glad I missed.
A few years back, dude. That's 20 years ago.
Yeah, I know. I was trying not to, make myself hurt my back by saying something.
All right, Jimmy said security stopped Triple H from coming after him. So
I saw the video.
Good for you, man.
I saw the video of where the Macho Man and Hulk Hogan beat the shit out of the fan that got in the ring with them with the Sting face paint on.
Yeah,
I was kind of hoping it was Vince Russo.
So I was on a road trip today, and that's why I'm on location for the podcast. But I stopped at a place in Virginia's Eastern Shore called Stuckey's. I bring this up only because on the wall that they sell various things of spice. One of them literally said, "Good shit." And I was like, I got to take a picture of it, but like, I had a long drive ahead of me, so my mind was in a million different directions and forgot to take the picture. But I was like, "Hey, pal."
That's such good shit, pal.
Yeah, I wish I had the Mr. McBossman shirt with me today, but I digress.
It's fine. It is fine.
I was not expecting to find good shit.
That's fucking awesome. I got to go find that store now.
I'm hoping on my drive back home that I'll stop at Stuckey's again and make sure I get a picture of good shit.
Was it Stuckey to the wall? That's fantastic.
Jimmy says he thinks FTR is the greatest tag team.
Dudley Boys.
There is an AEW, no doubt. Specifically AEW.
Oh,
I fully support that.
I
think the Acclaimed could take that moniker, but they need more years of doing their thing.
I think that FTR is light years above every other tag team in that division. I honestly, of the card for whatever the Wrestle Dream thing that they got, them at Aussie Open is going to be fun.
Yeah.
Aussie Open's a fun team to watch. I actually enjoy Aussie Open. I enjoy watching Will Ospreay too. He's another one I did a 180 on. But FTR is light years ahead of every other tag team in AEW. I would say they're at worst a top 10 tag team all time. They might sneak into top 5 all time in all wrestling, but then you're just kind of that's where it gets kind of interesting.
Their feud with DIY in NXT is one of my favorite things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Storyline wise, with DIY continually just coming up short, and the chase, like in the end, it was such a huge payoff and just well told.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. That was them and when they had those matches with American Alpha.
Yeah.
Those were bangers.
Jessica was asking, did we see the Twitter war between Bayley and Jade? We touched on that briefly earlier. But I think Bayley would not be a bad opponent for Jade, whether it's first opponent or early on in her time with WWE, because Bayley is one of those people, quite honestly, at this point, Bayley was a champion, tag team champion. She's been just about everything there. And like right now she's not at the top of the card. So she has credibility, but also, you wouldn't be necessarily knocking her down, and it would actually be pulling Jade up to
Yep.
show that Jade is a worthy opponent.
Yes, absolutely.
So I wouldn't mind seeing that.
Again, like I said, in less than a week, she is a bigger deal in WWE already than she ever was in AEW, and she was the longest. She had the longest winning streak, and she was the longest reigning champion of any champion in AEW.
Yeah. So.
And
Yeah.
really quickly with the whole AEW booking thing, because I know they're doing this thing with the devil and all this shit with Jay White. Jay White's supposed to be a heel. Heels don't get attacked like he did. I'm sorry, I had a problem with that. Then another thing was they're doing a triple threat match, I think, at some point this weekend. And the winner goes on to face, I think, the international champion, Ray Phoenix. And I want to say that one of the guys is Claudio, who just lost the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Championship. I think one of the douchebag Bucks, who was one of the Ring of Honor Trios champions, and Brian Cage, who just lost the Trios titles to the Young Bucks and Hangman Page.
So you got people that could put on an entertaining match, but are what you're saying are losers.
I'm just saying, why are guys who have just lost championships, kind of like when Roman Reigns entered the Elimination Chamber right after losing the Intercontinental Championship,
losing the rematch,
and then losing the rematch, and then watched as Braun Strowman eliminated the other 4 people from the match just to have Roman beat him. I'm not saying WWE doesn't do stupid shit like this, but this seems to be a common occurrence with AEW.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, this is stupid. This is stupid booking. Why does one of the Jacksons need to be fighting for the international championship? It should. I mean, I'm not going to be against Ray Phoenix and Claudio because I know Claudio would wreck them,
right?
And it would make sense. And that's another thing. Are the Blackpool Combat Club still heels or they faces now?
I don't know.
This is what happens when they go away for all this time. They just become it just implodes. Oh my God. I was looking at the card and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. What is going on?
Slightly circling back, Tim put in his top 5 tag teams of all time: Road Warriors, Demolition, Heart Foundation, the Usos, and FTR. I know for you, Brainless One, you would definitely have the Dudley Boys in there.
Numero uno, and they're light years ahead of every other tag team, and that's only because of the fact that Hawk ended up being the biggest piece of shit I've heard, other than Hulk Hogan. And we're not talking about Voldemort, who is in WWE or in the perils of professional wrestling at all, because he's burning in hell. But I would say, for me, it would be the Dudley Boys. It would be the Legion of Doom. I'd have the Heart Foundation 3. I'd have the Harlem Heat 4, and I have the Midnight Expresses 5.
Okay.
I can't not have beautiful Bobby Eaton in any. Bobby Eaton has to be somewhere on one of my lists. I just adore Bobby Eaton and all the work he does.
Sure.
And Cornette.
Some of the newer teams right now, just like FTR, they don't have a ton of time left wrestling, but I think they need a few more years for me before I'll put them yes, they're definitive. Quite honestly, for me at this point, I would put the New Day higher than I would put FTR.
I agree with the Usos, though. The Usos for me are just
Usos.
They're in the
deservedly.
They're not in the top 5, but they're 6th. They're on the outside looking in, and they're very capable of being in my top 5. I'm always willing to knock people from my top 5.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Chris Brown chiming in saying DX, the Usos, the Dudleys, Road Warriors, and then Hall and Nash.
There you go.
Yeah. Tim also Rock and Roll Express and Midnight Express. I would also throw in there I think the Steiner brothers would be a top 10.
See,
I saw them in WCW and in WWF, and then they went back to WCW and did it again.
Jay,
So,
I'm sorry, but Scott Steiner has completely ruined everything that he could ever be positively thought of from me
I hear you.
after he hopped around like a bunny rabbit after the finger poke of doom.
But I mean, he did also give us one of the
140
greatest wrestling promos in the last 20 years.
140 you're 143 and 2/3%. Oh, I'm sorry, 141 and 2/3% correct.
Right.
Which is over 130 something more percentage than the 8 and a third chance that Samoa Joe
has.
Because Kurt Angle knows
No
he
chance.
can't beat me.
And he knows that.
And he knows that.
When he said, and he knows that, that was... so many parts of that were just gems. But
I love the fact that whole thing, the math was absolutely flawless. It was just the grammar and the English coming out of his mouth that you could tell he went to the University of Michigan.
Yeah.
Because he obliterated the English language like he went to high school at Bristol Eastern.
You made Chris Brown choke on a biscuit.
Oh, no, that ain't good. Are you okay?
When you described Scott Steiner hopping like a bunny.
It's true, though. That was the worst part. I could oversee the whole finger poke of doom the way they did it. If Scott Steiner, who's supposed to be Big Papa Pump, who's got steroids on top of steroids and eats steroids with a side of steroids every single day, was hopping around like the Easter Bunny. I didn't need to see that. That was the worst part. I have hated Scott Steiner ever since that happened. He almost ruined wrestling for me.
All right. All right, Brainless One. What is the next topic that you would like to tackle on this Friday evening?
Well, I kind of missed it with the segue earlier, but I do have a top 10 list real quick.
All right. Brainless top 10.
And it kind of goes back to with the whole Jade Cargill thing about her signing with WWE. And now there's a lot of talk of a lot of people from both companies talking about being, hopping over. Is Drew McIntyre going to go to AEW? Is Seth Rollins going to go to AEW? And so forth and so on. But it got me thinking. They have presented Cody Rhodes in the way that he is now the top babyface in WWE. I love LA Knight, but if you think that LA Knight is a bigger face than Cody Rhodes, you are wrong. Just like the guy who was trying to go after me yesterday on Twitter.
Yeah.
LA Knight is number 1 on Smackdown. Let me talk to you. Yeah.
Yeah. Smackdown is the number 1 show, by the way.
And I think it's great. I think Brian Pillman's going to flourish. I don't think he's going to be, he's not going to main event WrestleManias, but he's going to be a key cog and is a future Intercontinental Champion.
With the mullet that he has, can you foresee possibly, with the mulleted locks, him taking down Roman Reigns one day is the person with the wettest hair in WWE or in professional wrestling for that matter?
As KJ once said after winning the 2008 NBA Finals, anything is possible. Okay. I mean, that's just as possible as it is that Steve Austin's going to break into his house and Brian Pillman Jr. is going to be the one that pulls the gun. Monday Night Raw in the 90s was on a whole different level. That's why I love, as much as I love wrestling to this day, nothing will have me loving wrestling more than mid to late 90s Monday Night Raws. But with the way that they presented Cody and how they've already presented Jade Cargill, it got me to think, who are some people I'd like to see make the jump from AEW to WWE? Is there people that I would like to see make the return to WWE from AEW? I have excluded people like Orange Cassidy from this list because, yes, as much as I would love to see Orange Cassidy be the one that actually dethrones Roman Reigns and he finishes Cody's story for him, I know for a fact that Orange Cassidy is not going to get booked the same way he does in AEW. The same thing with the Danhausen. So I have excluded them from this list, but I did compile the top 10 people I'd like to see make the jump from AEW to WWE. Number 10. Speaking of people who hold a very special place in my heart, I would love to see Mark Henry come back. I have, when I was watching AEW, enjoyed him in the backstage role that he has been doing with AEW. He's fantastic. He's got a great personality for it. I miss Mark Henry in WWE. I'd be lying if I said I didn't. So he's number 10 on my list.
Okay.
Number 9, Jamie Hayter. I think that she would be somebody like Jade Cargill who can make an impact in the WWE Women's Division. Number 8, this is a 2-for-1. If there was a tag team, and I'm excluding FTR because they just re-signed. I know that they just re-signed as well, but I think the Ass Boys would definitely benefit if they worked in WWE. Their dad, as much as he is a big name in AEW, was a bigger deal in WWE, and I think that the Gun Club would be a very, very popular and successful tag team in WWE. Although I do like having them in the Bullet Club Gold. Them with Jay White and Juice Robinson was fantastic.
Yeah.
Number 7, my favorite AEW women's wrestler, Chris Statlander. I think she's another one that she would definitely benefit if she made the jump. I don't see her necessarily doing it. She's got a lot of friends over in AEW, but she's somebody I would love to see in WWE from AEW.
Okay.
Number 6, I would love to see the return of Miro. I miss Rusev Day. That's all I'm going to say. It was one of my favorite things. I had the shirt and everything. I miss Rusev Day.
Vince McMahon ruined a perfect opportunity. I think it was SummerSlam in Boston, Massachusetts. The roof would have been blown off the place if he and Aiden English had won the tag team titles that night. But they never pulled the damn trigger.
The garden would have melted, dude.
Yeah. Seriously. It would have been not quite to the level of Kane tombstoning Pete Rose.
No. That's still one of my favorite moments in Boston. After, 2004, 7, 13, and 18. And
yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah!
And to add on to this, if Miro Rusev did return to WWE, I would be elated. I don't know what that means. Number 5, another guy that I think, because you know me, I love big, meaty men who slap the shit out of each other. Willie Hobbs. I think he would definitely benefit if he were to go to WWE. And I would be a huge fan of his if he went there.
Yeah.
Speaking of other big, meaty men that like to slap the shit out of each other, number 4, Wardlow.
Yeah.
And if anybody really could use a change of scenery in the professional wrestling industry, it is him. Tony Khan doesn't know what the hell he's doing with him, just like Tony Khan doesn't know what he's doing with the women's division outside of Tony Storm.
Quite honestly, and I think this name is going to be on your list, I want him and MJF to go together.
Okay. Number 3, Ricky Starks. I think that if at the end of the day, when somebody's contract does end with AEW and they were to make the jump from WWE, and I had to put money on it, it's Ricky Starks. When Regal
he has to join his sister Zoe.
Yes. And I remember when William Regal, when he was talking about how he made the jump from, when he got released from WWE, he had 3 guys that he had with him that he was going to bring in. Ricky Starks, Wheeler Yuta, and Daniel Garcia. I have seen enough from Wheeler Yuta to know that he is nothing more than your younger brother that your mother forces you to take with you to hang out with your friends no matter what you do. And Daniel Garcia is a dancing dweeb that I never want to see in a wrestling ring at the same breath that I say about the Young Bucks. Ricky Starks, under the WWE umbrella, would be gold. He would be a slam dunk. I think that he would flourish in WWE. He's got the look. He's got the charisma. He's got the talking ability. He's got the ring ability. He's got all the pieces. He might be a little smaller.
Right.
But man, he's got everything else. And I think that he would absolutely be a stud in WWE.
All right, a couple of things in the comment section. I started laughing because I read Tim's comment. They needed to let Miro beat Cena at WrestleMania after he had sex in the tank with Lana. I don't disagree. I don't disagree, and I would love to see the tank come back at some point. Mike Rainey saying, "Where in the world is Wardlow? It's a crime that they're not using him." I believe he and Wardlow and Waldo are in the same spot.
Oh, they're wearing red and white striped hats and they're hidden somewhere in the picture, but you have an easier time finding Waldo in the picture than you do of Wardlow in the locker room.
Perhaps he is just standing next to Chris Hero in catering.
That's like a lunar eclipse, though.
Oh no!
We need more sandwiches. Chris, you've had enough heroes. No, you're a hero, pal.
Yep.
Number 2, the one person in AEW that I really wish had never left WWE, so he's definitely number 2 on my list, Malachi Black. I will never forgive. I'm not happy that they let Swerve go. I'm not happy that they let FTR go. I'm still kind of baffled that they let Elias go. I'm very, very upset about that. But of all the people that they released, Aleister Black still is the one that stings the most, and I'm still pissed about. And I shouldn't be. But it was a stupid way to do it. I still do all these things, and this is coming from somebody called the Brainless one, and that's definitely more brainless than anything I've ever done. Aleister Black needs to come back to WWE.
His wife's there.
Yeah.
She seems to actually be enjoying her time there. Now that Vince isn't doing all things creative.
Yes. So, Cousin Jay, I gave you 2 through 10. If you had to take a guess who number 1 is, who do you think it is?
Maxwell Jacob Friedman.
QT Marshall. Just kidding. Maxwell Jacob Friedman. MJF. Do you want to talk about the total package? And I'm not talking about Lex Luger. It's MJF. He's got the look. What was it that somebody said it? He's got the look like Triple H. He talks like Roddy Piper. And he's got the presentation and the in-ring ability of like Shawn Michaels. He's a combination.
That might be overselling his in-ring ability. Like, I think he's really good. I don't think he's Shawn Michaels.
No, I don't think anybody's Shawn Michaels.
Not at this moment. But he is a really good in-ring performer. I mean, the Iron Man match that he had with Daniel Bryanson. I'm sorry, Daniel Bryanson. You know, the basically every match he's had since he's been the champion has been stellar. And even storyline wise, I'm glad they finally got out of that mode of you have to go through 5 people of his choosing before you get a shot at him. I'm glad they've gotten out of that. I enjoyed what they did with him and Adam Cole, baby, to set that up so Adam Cole would get his rematch. And, like, you know, they hugged it out, and they're still partners, they're still allies, and we'll see where this devil storyline goes.
Y'all will. I won't, because I'm not watching that crap. I refuse. I have not watched AEW on Wednesdays. The wife has even said, "Oh, it's 8:00 on a Wednesday. You know what that means?" I said, "Yep, we're gonna go watch something else."
Mike Rainey. We were talking about guys who are lifers. He says, I don't see MJF leaving redacted. I think he's a guy that the company wants to build around. You know, if MJF wants to build like this ginormous legacy, I mean, you could certainly do it by being in AEW. And I just don't foresee at the moment AEW surpassing WWE. So if you want to be considered somebody on the Mount Rushmore, and I do believe MJF wants to be up on Rushmore, he has to go to WWE at some point, and he has to main event WrestleMania.
He did an interview a while back, and he talked about what I think it was right before All In happened. How he called and reached out to Cody Rhodes and said, "Cody Rhodes, I want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of this." He goes, "I was a nobody." It was Cody Rhodes that gave MJF his biggest opportunity to that date, when he let him wrestle in All In, and he lost MJF, and then he went to AEW. Cody Rhodes is a bigger reason for MJF being in AEW than Kenny and the Bucks are. And obviously, I'm not going to count Tony Khan, because obviously Tony Khan's got to pay him. So
right.
Without Tony Khan, there is no AEW.
Right.
But I think that the whole connection, just like with Ricky Starks, I think the connection that they have with Cody Rhodes, especially the way that they're presenting Cody Rhodes. And now you have The Undertaker coming out, and they're like, "Oh, Undertaker, you work with anybody now? Who would it be?" He goes, "I'd like to work with that MJF man. He's the total package and all that stuff." That's high praise from the godfather of professional wrestling.
Right.
That's like Michael Jordan giving you kudos if you're a basketball player.
Sure.
That's the fucking Undertaker. That's the GOAT. That is the second greatest wrestling gimmick of all time. Giving high praise to MJF. Obviously, if the Monsoon of Gorillas was still alive, he would also be giving praise to MJF. But
yes,
that's a big deal. And I don't think people, like, especially the fans of AEW, I don't think they realize that no matter what they do, no matter what they say, no matter how hard they try, WrestleMania is still the Mecca. It is the Super Bowl of professional wrestling. And there's nothing that they or the Bucks or Tony Khan can do to change that. Does anybody even know what the biggest show is for AEW?
Paul White.
What is I see what you did there. But what is their Super Bowl?
I mean, they just sold out Wembley Stadium. I think legit paid attendance, we found out it was 71,000. That's a big deal.
Yes, especially if you're
I
Will
believe
Ospreay.
All In. I believe they perceive All In as their biggest show.
It probably is. It could be Double or Nothing, because they've done more Double or Nothings than any other pay-per-view. But it's not WrestleMania. You could take all of AEW's pay-per-views, whether it's 4 or if it's down the road when they do 37 in a month. None of them are WrestleMania.
Even when WCW had Starrcade, and Starrcade was the first pay-per-view.
Yes.
Ever. Starrcade was never to the same level that WrestleMania was.
Because, and honestly, like, whatever their big show is, comparing that to Starrcade, I would say 100%. That's what it is. AEW's biggest show of the year is Starrcade, and WWE has WrestleMania. Because Starrcade is a great show to showcase professional wrestling, like what AEW is allegedly trying to do, where WrestleMania is the show of shows, because it's not just about the wrestling, it's about all of the presentation that is involved with WWE. Because you get all the entertainers, because you get Cyndi Lauper and Muhammad Ali and Floyd Mayweather and Lawrence Taylor and the Snooki and Bad Bunny, and you get all of these celebrities to show up and make it a bigger deal. AEW doesn't have that. AEW also doesn't have the star power that WWE has. And MJF knows that. Because MJF knows that if he goes to WWE, on a given night, he could be out there cutting a promo, and The Undertaker could show up and interrupt him. The Rock could show up and interrupt him. Steve Austin could interrupt and show up and interrupt him. Who's going to do that? Who's going to do that in AEW?
They got Sting.
They got Sting, and believe me, I love Sting. But at the end of the day, Sting is not The Rock. Sting is not Steve Austin. Sting is not Hulk Hogan.
Brother.
That's about and Sting's not The Undertaker. That's about it. That's the extent of it. Those are the only names that are bigger than Sting in my book. I would say Ric Flair, but everybody knows that Ric Flair could be had for the right price.
Right.
Nobody just wants to touch that crusty old bastard.
Come on, he's got one last match in him again.
Please no.
That he might fall asleep during. I think it's because he didn't get to put the pacemaker back in at that moment. But
yeah.
Yeah.
You got any other topics, Cousin Jay?
No, I think that's it. So I don't know if you wanted to kind of whether it's good, bad, brainless, or if you wanted to go over some of the Wrestle Dream matches.
You want to make some quick predictions for the Wrestle Dream?
Sure, let's do some quick predictions.
All right, so this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 match card, which is surprising for AEW. Bryan Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr.
Right.
Oh, should I go through the whole card? Or do you want to just do match for match?
It was shocking that we got Danielson back as soon as we did. It was even more shocking that he came out there and had a victory. He's saying he has no restrictions going into this match. It's going to be a banger. With him saying that he has one more year left of full-time wrestling, I'm going to say he's going to start doing the honors. And I'll say he starts doing the honors at Wrestle Dream. He loses to Zack Sabre Jr. and probably a hope of trying to get Zack Sabre Jr. to show up more often on AEW television.
Okay. I'm going to disagree because in all the years that I've been a fan of professional wrestling, I never bet against the best wrestler on the planet. So I am going to go with Bryan Danielson. I think we lost Jay for a minute there. See if he comes back in again. I just think that with, I'd like to see Bryan Danielson, put, wrestlers over. I think that'd be good for him. This was the match we were supposed to get at last year's Forbidden Door, and we didn't get it. I don't know what their booking decision was there. Did they continue with that? But I think that at the end of the day, Bryan Danielson goes over on Zack Sabre Jr.
All right. So Chris Brown and Mike Rainey also saying Sabre over Danielson.
Okay. Swerve Strickland versus Hangnail Page.
I think Hangman Page wins this. I think with the fact that he recently signed a new deal, I think Strickland to an extent probably wants to get back to WWE. I think he's got unfinished business left there. I think he wants to do as well as he can in AEW. But I think this is a victory for Hangman.
I disagree. Swerve needs that big-time victory, and beating Hangman Page, who's actually one of the former AEW World Champions, is a good stepping stone for him.
Okay.
They haven't really done anything else with him, so I'd like to see them do something with him.
All right, so we got Chris Brown saying Swerve, and we got Mike Rainey saying Hangnail.
Okay. AEW Tag Team Championship match, FTR versus Aussie Open.
The fans.
Yeah, I agree. That's the lock.
FTR. I think FTR wins this.
I agree. I like Aussie Open. I'm glad that they're getting this opportunity, but FTR is going over.
Yep.
TBS Championship match, Chris Statlander versus Julia Hart.
So Jimmy earlier in the chat was really excited about this match and said that he felt that this was an opportunity that they could really have something special. I agree that this could be a really great match, and I don't think it's any time to take the title off Chris Statlander. She just beat a dominant champion. And you
The
can't
dominant.
have her coming back from her time off and have her win the championship only to lose it. I mean, Lord knows what stuff Tony Khan is on this weekend. But if he's got taken the stuff that makes him right, Chris Statlander wins.
I 100% agree with you. And not only that, Chris Statlander winning is my lock of the week.
Yeah.
Which means Julia Hart's winning.
Yeah. All right, Mike Rainey agrees. Statlander retains. Same with Chris Brown.
All right. Ricky Starks versus Wheeler Yuta. This was where I was trying to understand, like, what the hell's going on, because they just turned Ricky Starks heel. He's with Big Bill now. I don't even remember who Big Bill was with before, nor do I really care. But,
was he still with Stokely Hathaway? I
think he left Stokely Hathaway. He was teaming up with Brian Cage, even though Brian Cage was... This is why it's difficult to try to keep track of everything in AEW. Regardless, dude.
Yeah.
Ricky Starks, Wheeler Yuta, and the Battle of the Heels, or the faced Yuta that we don't know about.
Ricky Starks.
Agreed.
Ricky Starks definitely has had a couple of good wins, and I think he needs to keep that momentum going.
I agree. What is Wheeler Yuta doing anyway?
I think Wheeler Yuta in general is a good hand. That's about it.
He's Spike Dudley in 2023. Tell me when I'm wrong.
Better than Marco Stunt.
That's not saying much. I'm better than Marco Stunt. For the TNT Championship, Christian Cage versus Darby Allin.
And it's a 2 out of 3 falls match. Darby Allin's going to do something stupid. I think this may steal the show. Christian should not be losing that title. If they want to keep the credibility that they've started to earn with what Christian's been doing, he needs to win. So I'm going with Christian Cage here.
I agree it's going to be Christian, and then the swerve is going to happen after that match because Ed's going to come out and spear him after he wins the match.
And will Dino Man attack?
Dino Man won't know what to do because it's going to be Adam Cope.
It'll be Sledge. All right.
Wedge.
Mike Rainey saying Christian retains, but Dino Man turns on Christian.
Oh yeah, that's what we need. Another unexpected, unnecessary turn. Because we already established that the Dino Man is the new big show of AEW.
All right, Chris Brown, Christian retains, and that's when Sledge shows up.
All right.
Adam Sledge.
The Righteous, the team of Dutch and Vincent versus MJF in a 2-on-1 handicap match for the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championships.
I think MJF wins somehow, some way to retain the Ring of Honor titles. I'm not 100% sure with this. Could Adam Cole be down at the ringside and end up using his crutch to help in some way MJF win this match? So I'm going to say MJF because, he's MJF. He's the world champion, and he's a tag team champion. So
Wrong. I'm going to go with the two guys that were supposed to be in the Wyatt family, the Righteous. I think the numbers game is going to be too much for MJF to overcome. So without a tag team partner, he's kind of shit out of luck.
Disaster for him at Wrestle Dream.
Now, I know this match we're not going to disagree on, but I just think it's funny because I wrote half the card on one side and half the card on the other side, and all the matches up until this point on the left we've disagreed on, and all the matches on the right we've completely agreed on.
Okay.
But Eddie Kingston versus Shibata Bread for the New Japan Pro Wrestling Openweight champion and the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Championship.
Eddie Kingston's been wrestling banged up for a bit. He said he's not taking independent bookings because he's got to defend these 2 titles, and that's the most important thing he can do right now. Eddie Kingston just signed a new long-term deal. I love the Mad King. Mad King retains.
I agree with you. And it's because Eddie Kingston's wrestling the guy who had his brain taken out of his head and then put it back in. Pretty sure. Almost positive. But Eddie's not losing this match. He just won the Ring of Honor World title. It's not the TNT title. All right. A fatal 4-way tag team match, which would explain why the... Oh, this doesn't explain anything because now I'm trying to figure out how the... okay. The Young Bucks versus the Lucha Brothers versus Hook and Orange Cassidy versus the Ass Boys. The winner gets a shot at the WWE, the AEW Tag Team Championships at a future time. The Bucks, who were part of the Ring of Honor Triple Trios Tag Team Champions, Ray Phoenix, who just dropped Jon Moxley on his head a week and a half ago and is now getting a different twice a week and a half ago, and is now getting a second championship opportunity after winning the title he did not deserve to win.
And what's the name of the ref? Is it going to be that ref reffing this match?
Rich Knox?
Is Rich Knox going to be the referee? Because if that would change my thinking on this match completely.
Oh, if it was Rich Knox, then the Bucks are winning. But if it's what's the other guy's name? He's actually oh God, I can't even think of his name. There's one guy I actually like that's one of the. If it's the freaking donkey-faced woman, then she's gonna win. Ref Aubrey's gonna be the winner.
Okay.
But who do you got?
I think I'm going with the Ass Boys here.
I 100% agree with you on this.
Mike Rainey saying, unfortunately, I think the Young Cucks win, and I think he kind of wants to see you go crazy.
Yes, because that's what we need. The Ring of Honor Trios champions also being the AEW Tag Team champions.
Yeah.
And, of course, they're doing the Hook and Orange Cassidy thing because why not? I mean, they like to do makeshift tag teams just like WWE does.
I'm just anxiously awaiting the return of the Danhausen.
Yes, me too. I might actually start tuning in again just for him. All right, and speaking of anticipation, the last match on the card.
Yeah.
Twinkle Toes with his boyfriend Kota Ibushi teaming up with the GOAT of GOATs, who has goated more than goats have ever goated in the history of goatdom, Chris Jericho, going up against the Don Callis family, consisting of Will Ospreay, Take a Shit, and Sammy Scumbag Guevara.
I think the Don Callis family wins this. I think they've got a lot of momentum. They got a lot of heat on them. And this would just project them, I think, even further up the heat meter. And that's what you want to do. If you want to turn this into an even bigger company, you got to have bad guys for people to go against. You don't need 5,000 factions, but you could bring in a almost 6,000-year-old Bobby Fish into the mix. You know what? Dude's probably got heat with Jesus. Heat with the original Cain. You know, from Cain and Abel, not Cain, not Blue Cain.
Moses.
He's got heat with Moses.
He's got heat with the 16th president of the United States because he's the only person to have beaten Abraham Lincoln in his career.
Yeah.
But,
He's got heat with King Tut.
by the way, real quickly, Jim Cornette even acknowledged that Abraham Lincoln was a wrestler. That's all I needed to hear. That's it. It's official.
Yeah.
Abraham Lincoln is the second greatest wrestler of all time after
All
Bruno
right.
Sammartino.
All right. Mike Rainey and Chris Brown both saying the Callis family wins. And Mike Rainey chiming in saying, I'm hearing Danhausen might not return to AEW. That would be a tragedy.
I don't see how that's going to happen. He's under contract with them, and he's been out with an injury.
That would get a badder brainless from me.
That'd definitely get my brainless for. Well, no, last week was definitely my brainless for the year. I'm going to disagree, though. I think that the team of Kenny, Coda, and Jericho is going to win, and only because of the fact that it seems like every time we think that Chris Jericho is going to lose, he ends up winning the match. And on paper, this makes too much sense for Don Callis to go over in this match. So this has definitely got me thinking that Chris Jericho and Jerkoff Omega and his best friend Kota Ibushi are going to win. And then Kota and Kenny are going to celebrate with the blow-up doll, who is a 17-time champion in some stupid bullshit wrestling organization.
Yeah.
Yeah?
All right.
You know what that means?
I do.
It is time for the good, the bad, and the brainless. So, Cousin Jay, what do you got for your good this week?
I think for me, and this is chalk, like Jade Cargill and signing with WWE and them making a huge deal of it. Now, if she had just signed and it was a run-of-the-mill, like, we're not going to make we signed this new wrestler. Like, they made a big deal out of it. So that's why it's got my good for this week.
I had a feeling, and I really wanted to put that myself, but I like to differentiate so we can give extra love to something for good. My good for this week goes to what happened on Tuesday, and I cannot believe I'm saying this twice now. Not just, in the span of like a couple of weeks or a couple of months, but the fact that I'm actually saying this twice in a year is incredible. But I'm going to go with that pull-apart brawl between Braun Breaker and Baron Corbin.
Wow.
No, I don't. I'll have to check my temperature later. I don't think I'm sick. Let me feel the ground. I don't think hell froze over. Yes, Baron Corbin has gotten my good more than once in 2023. I doubt.
Oh, go ahead.
I was about to say, I doubt anybody had that on their wrestling bingo cards for 2023.
Right. All right. So Tim has his good. He loves Toni Storm's new character.
She's been doing great stuff. I've been seeing the clips of her online. What was it? Heads up, tits out, and watch the shoe or some shit like that, I think was the thing that she was doing.
Something like that.
And her and RJ City has been actually rather entertaining. And RJ City has been the unsung hero of AEW. I'm sorry, of Redacted.
Right.
And it'll be double redacted if the Danhausen is gone.
All right. Chris Brown said his good was watching Carl Anderson clear the ring. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the guy who cried. Why would you want to go to WWE? That man ate crow. A shit ton of it, too. Why would you want to go there? They don't know how to treat their employees, and then he's back.
All right.
What do you got for your bad?
I have to go with Adam Cole's injury. As much as I think that there's a slight possibility that this is a work, I don't think it is. And if they get it over on me, good for them. But it sucks that he worked all that time to get back to the ring to start this feud with MJF, which turned into them main eventing the biggest show in AEW's history. And he's getting some momentum going. Overall, I'm going to say that is my bad. Although, again, if you're talking like bump card and things like that, I think it's probably not the worst thing that Adam Cole has some time off. I just don't love when people get hurt.
I'm still convinced that this is kayfabe because, like I said, that bandaging job that they did on Wednesday. I mean, yes, I know it's AEW, and I don't expect any differently from AEW's medical that I do from AEW's creative that I expect from AEW's executives.
Mm.
So I'm convinced that it is kayfabery at its finest. But my bad goes to Mustafa Ali's release from last week. And I'm going to say this because of the fact that Shawn Michaels did an interview and he was asked about Mustafa Ali, and he says the guy was a great asset to here. He was great to work with. He goes, what really kills me, he's like, they didn't even give us a heads up and let us know that he was going to get released because he was on a main roster contract. He goes, we had plans for Mustafa Ali deep into 2024. I'm sorry. If you are in the same entity like that,
right,
you would expect a little bit more of a heads up than finding out the day that it happens that he's gone.
and to me, that speaks to Triple H not knowing.
Yes. Which means Nick Khan and Vince McMahon were all over those releases. Especially Nick Khan.
Yeah.
But yeah, that got my bad just because I'm like, that just doesn't seem right. By the way, Shawn Michaels, and I don't know if it was the same interview or a different one, said that CM Punk is more than welcome back in NXT if he wants to come back to WWE.
I saw that. I also saw that he wants NXT to be put on a younger, hipper cable channel.
Oh, MTV? It's not like they do music videos there anymore. Music television. They could have WWE wrestling.
Right after Jersey Shore Family Reunion.
Stop. That is the one show I made it one episode and then drank so much that I threw up all over myself. That's how bad I did not want to watch any more of the Jersey Shore.
All right. Tim has LA Knight getting COVID for his bad.
That was pretty close, but I'm sorry. That the Shawn Michaels thing. Now, granted, it could have been talking to somebody else when he was answering, so it's possible. But anyway, what do you got for your Brainless?
I do have. I'm going to pull one out of the Brainless hat here, and I'm going to go with wrestling fans. I don't like the idea that, like, we've made wrestling fandom factions now. You can only like WWE or you can only like AEW. And I agree with you that Kenny and the Bucks, with the way they've done things, has not been helpful. When Impact was a thing, you did not see people, like, there were still people that were Impact diehards and WWE diehards, but it was not quite as contentious. All that being said, I'm going with the wrestling fans who turned it into a toxic ass atmosphere out there. Like, for me, I just like to watch wrestling. And like you, I like to see big, beefy men beating the shit out of each other.
And honestly, to add on to because I agree that is definitely my Brainless, is the fact that if you're a wrestling fan, you're going to like whatever you like, and you're going to not like what you don't like. I don't need some jabroni from, Idaho telling me that I don't know what I'm talking about, or from Mexico or from England, wherever the hell you're from. And it's kind of like what it has become with social media. It's like no matter what you do, you could just type in the word purple and tweet it out, and somebody's going to have a problem with it. Oh, why did you pick purple? Why didn't you pick red? Oh, the sky is blue right now. Oh, man, it's freaking gray here, man. Why are you going to rub it in my face that it is blue where you are?
Right.
That's just how it is now with social media. But like you said with the tribalism, as a WWE fan, we talk about it like this is the sport we love to hate. We have not been on board with everything that WWE has done. We have a 7+ year long podcast with many episodes of us shitting on stuff that WWE does. And you know what? People don't even give us a hard time for that. They don't say any of this stuff.
Right.
And like you said with the whole Impact thing, you think Impact fans were mad that Christian jumped from Impact to go back to WWE? No. You think they did the same thing with R-Truth? No, they were probably happy for R-Truth. And that's one of those things, like, I've said it before. Like, I tried to get into Impact. There were certain things about Impact I just couldn't like. I liked watching AJ Styles. I liked watching Eric Young. The Monster Abyss and Samoa Joe were guys that I really enjoyed watching. Guys that I didn't get the exposure, because they weren't in WWE or WCW or ECW or any of those things. Guys that I got to see and get to know. And that was one thing I actually did appreciate Impact for. I never sat there and crucified them. Yes, they did some booking decisions, but I never go after them like AEW fans. It's just crazy. And then on top of it, the fact that I had people coming after me because I didn't know what I was talking about. The fact that two people are going to argue the same thing with me when you didn't even see the argument I had with the first guy, you're going to come after me for that? Just shows what kind of a person I am because I don't like Kenny Omega. I'm sorry. If you can sit through that entire wrestling match that he had with an inanimate blow-up doll, watching him absolutely embarrass and just destroy the wrestling industry, and you can come away look, oh, that was great stuff.
I wouldn't say he destroyed the wrestling industry. The wrestling industry is alive and well, but he definitely exposed it.
That's it. That's what I really meant. But I'm sorry, wrestling fans, you get my Brainless, and I've probably given you my Brainless more than anybody else, and that says a lot because Vince McMahon exists.
All right, it looks like a clean sweep for fans. Now, Tim specifically pointed out AEW fans.
Yes.
So Mike Rainey saying, by the way, I think we see Santos turning on LWO tonight. I wonder if Carlito will be part of that.
By the way, when I did it, I didn't put fans. I have elite fans.
Oh, okay.
Because they're like I said, they're the Yankee fans of professional wrestling.
Yeah, Mike Rainey saying, I hate fans who tell you that you have to like one organization over the other just because people could like whatever they want. And that's what he doesn't like about wrestling fans. Like, I've said a few times on the show, I enjoy the lucha wrestlers for what they do and all the acrobatics that they have. And I'm into their matches like 90% of the time. But then they have these moves that you could clearly tell, like
choreographed,
and the other performer is doing the work.
Yeah.
Like it's clear, and it takes me out of the match. But the same thing goes for some things that happen in like Sami Zayn matches and/or Malachi Black, where like they've absolutely been getting like
housed,
and then all of a sudden they act like nothing happened, and like a house of fire, and then next thing you know, they're knocked out again.
It's that Ring of Honor mentality, though, Jay, because I've never seen a wrestler in all of my years not sell wrestling moves like Kenny Omega. You could actually shoot Kenny in the fucking head and he wouldn't sell it. I am convinced of that. I'm sorry. On the sell-o-meter, he's not Samoa Joe. He's not Shawn Michaels in SummerSlam 2005. Now that's how you sell something. He's not Dolph. He's not going to get compared to Dolph Ziggler in selling.
And by the way, it sounds like Dolph and Mustafa are a couple of names that are on the radar of Impact Wrestling. I hope they do sign them. Impact at this point, like, hey, they just need more talent to be able to help build up. And I think they do all right for themselves. I think both Dolph and Mustafa, if they want to keep going, that's not a bad landing spot. I'd rather see them land there than AEW, but I think I agree with you. Dolph would more likely end up in AEW with his brother.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Mustafa Ali, I think, is going to end up there too, but Mustafa Ali can go there or Impact, and I think he'd be really good for both.
Yeah.
But if you like what you see, whether you are a first-time watcher or a continuous fan, make sure you like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter X, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to us on YouTube at the letter T, the letter H, the letter E, the letter F, the letter N, MARKS, the F in Marks. If you like, follow, and subscribe to us, we will do the same back. That has always been our
mantra. And make sure you set up notifications so that when we go live, you will be notified that we are live, whether that's being subscribed on the YouTube channel or on our Facebook page. And we will be posting things on both throughout the week. We also have our Spotify page, and we try to put the show up in all these different places so you will be able to take us on the road with you, go live with us, see our memes, and all that sorts of fun stuff. But yeah, you know, we want everybody to join in talking about our favorite sport we all love to hate. So yeah.
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 And I think that's everything, Cousin Jay.
Yeah.
I think
I think that 100% is everything. We do not have anything left.
Ugh,
Wait.
this is erroneous. What is erroneous, Curtis Axel? That you guys do this to me every single episode. This is such bullshit. I should talk to my agent. I would never have agreed to go into your effing Marks Hall of Fame if this was how you were going to treat me. Man, you know, it's just, what an honor, Curtis Axel, to be in the Hall of Fame. And not just being in the Hall of Fame. You're an OG Hall of Famer. You're the initial first Hall of Famer in our Hall of Fame class. And this is how you're going to treat us? Well, what do you think this is? I'm the only person that's been on more episodes than anybody else. And just like today, which is September 29th of 2023, at an astonishing 3,169 days, I, FM Marks Hall of Famer, is still alive in the 2015 Royal Rumble. Honest to goodness, I do think that if there was any real wrestler that we put in our Hall of Fame that would really appreciate it, it's him. I really do think that.
Yeah.
He responded to us for the 3,000 days of being alive in the 2015 Royal Rumble. He is an absolute treasure. I would never, ever, I would get rid of everybody else from the Hall of Fame before Curtis Axel.
Yes.
Except maybe Shauna. No, Shawn would be the first one I would kick out. Kidding. I would never kick anybody out.
Right. Yeah. We won't even go for reasons why people would be kicked out.
Yes. We have no Pete Roses in our Hall of Fame.
Yeah, or, you know.
Redact, or Voldemort. Yes.
That.
Yes.
Anyway.
So, for episode 330 of everyone's favorite wrestling podcast, the FM Marks.
I'm Jay. He is
Brainless.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. The Brainless one. Make sure you mark out
with your guac out. See you, everyone.
Thanks for tuning
in.
Enjoy
Smackdown.
Yeah.
Enjoy Wrestle Dream, and we will talk with you next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And enjoy LA Night. Let me talk to you.
Yeah.